Your HVAC system is one of the biggest investments you'll ever make for your home, so you definitely want to make the right choice when it comes to which system to get or which company to use. But how can you make that choice? Well, let's go and talk with Sherman's owner Steve Hadley as he walks us through an install that we recently did for a customer and shows us how he assessed each portion of the house to make sure that that install was the correct choice for this customer.
We go in and look at the full scope of things. That is just as important for the equipment, let alone fixing those comfort complaints. Obviously, somebody can just come in and just change the equipment out, and that is not necessarily fixing all of the issues. So we do take the steps to spend a little more time with our estimates to try to figure out how we can address all of those issues. Some of the things we looked at with the homeowner, he was having some uneven airflow and some uneven temperatures throughout the house. We started by looking at the size of the equipment and trying to figure out how much CFM the system would need for return and supply. And when we look at these return air grills, this is what we call a 30-inch wide return air grill. So in other words, it has 2 stud spaces worth inside this wall that it used as ducting, drawing down through that wall into the basement. And if we were to look on a duct calculator of a typical 2x4 wall, and we get to what one of these spaces is, it's 14.5 inches in between the studs, 3.5 inches wide. We put that on a duct calculator, and we look here at approximately 0.1. We'd like to see static pressures a little lower than that on the return side. We get about 150 CFM. So this one, what we call a double, would carry 300 CFM. We added up all the return grills in the house, found that it was short on return for the number of CFM that it needed to operate the system. So then we went to looking for solutions to add return to the home. You need to be able to move enough airflow through the system for it to work properly. We will hopefully not only just fix the customer complaints, but also have the system to where it'll work and not worry about failures due to improper installations. So what we wound up doing is out here in this nice big open area, we added a floor return here, which has its own separate duct that goes back to an enlarged return air plenum, which we changed also because the return air plenum coming to the unit was not large enough to carry the CFM to operate the system properly. So we need to bring back as much, if not more, return air than we're putting out. Otherwise, the blower and the air handler is being restricted and it does not produce the CFM throughout the duct system. Producing the CFM that we need, period, for the system to operate correctly is going to give you not only balanced airflow, but if you can't bring back what the unit needs, you're not going to put out what it can produce. This was the concern. These big tall ceilings, this nice big open room, there were not enough supply registers. Plus, when we talk about return, up here on the wall is the only return register for this big open area. So that's why we chose to put the return in the floor out in this area. We also added 2 supply registers, one over here by the back door and one opposite end of the room on that outside wall to add more supply air to this area. Initially, it only had 1, 2, 3, and it had 1 kick plate under the cabinets over there in the kitchen. This room was hot in the summertime, cold in the wintertime, so we're not only supplying more air to the space now, we've added more return so that when air comes into a room, it has enough return to circulate across the room and condition the big room. The homeowner had pre-existing thermostats that he was using here. They're smart thermostats connected to his phone. They also had the availability to add a remote sensor to try to get room temperatures from 2 different areas. So we added a sensor right here on the wall, tried to get it away from any kind of supply vents and anywhere airflow would be moving so it doesn't influence the sensor. But just to gain some temperature reading of this big room so the thermostat can average between it and the sensor out here. So we're going to go into the crawl space now. We're going to take a look at the after of the installation, and we're also going to give props to the homeowner for having one of the best, nicest, most comfortable crawl spaces to crawl around on it that we've been in a really long time. So
your videographer is grateful for that.
yeah, it's like crawling on a wrestling mat the way he's done his crawl space. So this is our new Bosch air handler that we installed. The return air ductwork, it was too small to bring back 5 tons worth of airflow. So we enlarged the return, plus we added this large 10-inch return to our floor return up in the living room area. Secondly, another thing that I noticed while I was down here, the previous water heater was almost about rusted through at the bottom and leaking. We were able to take care of that for the homeowner also. The guys went one extra step. The homeowner has this nice floor of the crawl space that he has done himself. When he installed this, the water heater was pre-existing, so he did not get to do the flooring underneath that. So as our technicians had that out, our technicians cleaned that area up, installed this new piece under the water heater. So it does now have a vapor area under the water heater also. We set the water heater up on patio blocks so that it elevated it off of this floor. Heater kits are sized in kilowatts. There is multiple 5 kilowatt strings inside this heater kit. Previously, the homeowner had a 15 kilowatt heater with 2 different breakers like this air handler does. They had one 6-gauge 60 amp circuit running to the breaker, and inside the air handler they had just piggybacked those 2 breakers together, and that obviously is a big no-no. At that point, that breaker is overloaded. I could go to that breaker and actually feel it at the time, and you could feel it humming and hot. So it was definitely on its upper limit. I'm surprised it was not tripping the 60 amp breaker, but we ran a separate circuit for the 5 kilowatt side and hooked the 60 amp circuit back up to the 10 kilowatt side. We added a plug because we replaced the condensate pump. Previously, the condensate pump was just hardwired into the furnace. So serviceability wise, we can unplug that now and change this pump or take it outside if we need to clean it up. If the supply duct system is poorly designed and runs out of the end cap, we're going to have uneven airflow throughout the entire supply system. We are obviously dealing with existing ductwork and duct runs, and without completely going through the whole house and tearing it all out and starting from scratch, we're working with what was here but trying to make improvements on what was here. So previously, 3 of these duct runs that you see on the side of the ductwork and the bottom of the ductwork were straight out of the end cap. And in the HVAC world, that is a big no-no with the ducting, because airflow runs down this duct system, hits this end cap, and it uses the end cap to pressurize the duct system so that airflow comes out all of these supply runs as they come off the duct system. If you have a bunch of holes in the end cap, that pressurization can't work. You get a lot of airflow out of the particular runs that come out of the end cap, but you lose airflow out of the runs that are not in the end cap. So what we did is capped off the duct system like it should be, relocated the supply runs to the side or the bottom. There are quite a few down here at the very end, but that is just how this house was built, and we've made these adjustments to make airflow better. He should see more even airflow out of all the registers together. Probably also the temperature in rooms too, because if you've got one particular room that has 2 of these runs out of the end cap, that room can either overheat or overcool, while the other rooms are not conditioning as well because they're not getting proper airflow. So along with moving some of the supply runs out of the end cap, we added 2 from the house that were already here to the supply plenum so that we could relieve the supply duct that runs down this other direction. That supply ducting is, again, it's only sized to carry so much airflow, and it was already overloaded. And the reason we did this was for the 2 supply runs that we added up into the living room and kitchen area, so that we would know that we'd get enough air down that duct system in order to supply those. Originally, we had planned on and quoted the customer to reuse their refrigerant line set. The customer had an original complaint of a compressor tripping the breaker continuously. We did not re-diagnose the system. The customer just wanted a quote, but once we recovered the refrigerant, opened the line set, we saw evidence of green slime or something inside the system being green, whether that be dye or green slime. Neither one of those we want to put through a new system, so at that point we decided to talk with the homeowner about replacing the line set so that we would have a nice clean, fresh line set, so we would not contaminate the new system at all. Originally this was a 5-ton heat pump. The customer had some Bosch product. He was comfortable with the way it operated. We are a Bosch dealer, so we decided to go with the Bosch 5-ton inverter system here. You know, the inverter-driven compressor has the capability at operating at different speeds so that it kind of matches the outside ambient load on the house. The unit is running. I'm standing right beside it. I don't know if you can hear it. It's very quiet, very low decibel. It's obviously modulating at whatever speed it needs to. There's a drive board in here that takes care of all of that. Some things to note, this is on a wall bracket. This wall bracket was pre-existing. The homeowner wanted to keep it, so we can only get the unit so far out away from the house. We would typically like to see this unit out a little farther due to the gutter line and not having anything drop on the unit coming off of the roof. Unfortunately, we could not get that out farther without putting it on the ground on a pad and moving it away from the house a little farther. Homeowner is aware of that, and he's been noted to keep an eye on that. We do put a surge protector disconnect on these to help protect those components. Something else to note with maintenance in the future. So the house was originally laid out, had a dryer vent here. It was about 4 feet from the existing unit. Right now we've got this as far as we can get it. It's about 4.5 feet away from that. We would obviously recommend in the future, due to dryer lint and whatnot coming out of that dryer vent, to have periodic maintenance done on this unit and cleaning of the coil. Again, he already had some Bosch product in his home, so he was comfortable with the brand and the way it operated and kept his home comfortable. We typically present 3. We like to present 3. Sometimes we go back and talking back and forth with customers about 4 or 5 different options. It's trying to find what will fit the budget, but also fix the issues that are, concerns of the homeowner. There's always some sort of budget to think about with the homeowner. And so we found the system that would work for this application that fits his budget. I think this system, by the time we were done with it with the proper matched indoor unit, achieves about 16.5 CO2. It was a combination of wanting to get a system that would fix his comfortability issues, but also stay within a budget that was suitable for him.
So, can you just swap out the equipment with whatever fits through the door? Well, yes, but if you want your HVAC system to have proper airflow so that it can last longer, to be comfortable in your home year-round, and to be comfortable on your pocketbook because it's running as efficiently as it can, you need a proper home analysis. And if you're interested in getting a free quote from us here at Sherman's, you can give us a call or fill in our online form to schedule a quote.